Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Greetings to all. This is an online study program, especially for the students of National University of Bangladesh. And dear student, I am Muhammad Habibur Rahman, lecturer, Department of English at Joshore Government City College, Joshore. Would like to welcome to you all to this online study program. You have already known that your university, National University, has arranged this online study program, especially for you during this corona pandemic. And I have already completed four video lecture as a research person, and today I am with you with my fifth lecture. And let's start our today's discussion, and hopefully you are following this video lecture attentively, staying at home and continuing your study well. Dear student, you have already known that I am here especially for the students of master's preliminary level who are studying at Department of English. And in my last class, I delivered a lecture on the poem or ballad, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And today I am going to deliver a lecture on Kubla Khan, another famous poem written by S.T. Coleridge, who belongs to romantic poetry. And I am conducting the course named Romantic Poetry, and this is very important uh, course for your syllabus. So let's start our today's discussion. So at first, as usual, I will show you the learning outcome. After completing today's lecture, you will be understand these topics here. You will find the introduction of the poet and introduction to the poem Kubla Khan, background summary, subject matters, theme, or form of writing, speciality, or memorable quotations of the poem, and any question, analyze it, etc. So let's start our main discussion now. So at first, I will show you, as usual, the introduction of the poet, because you know that whenever we will study any poetry or piece of literature, so that times it is essential to understand or to know about the poet. So here you will have the introduction, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This is the born 1772, and he's a very much famous for English Romantic movement, and he has the close affinity or friendship with William Wordsworth, and both writers together wrote the great poetry or piece of poetry, that is lyrical ballads, that is testimony of romanticism or romantic poetry. you know Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So another slide for the introduction of Samuel Taylor Coleridge here. In my previous lecture, I already discussed about him. Here you will find the Coleridge romantic poet, and his poetic imagination is unique, and Coleridge is fond of unusual and supernatural things. Samuel Taylor Coleridge is famous for supernaturalism. He is called poet of supernaturalism, like William Wordsworth called poet of nature. So here, Samuel Taylor Coleridge is called poet of supernaturalism. You have already known by studying the rhyme of the ancient mariner that I discussed in my fourth lecture. And Coleridge maintained that the true end of poetry is to give pleasure through the medium of beauty. So this is the specialty of the writer, and this is the another slide, the details about the St. Coleridge that I have already discussed in my previous lecture. Now I will show you the introduction to the poem. So this is the today's poem, and the name of the poem is Kubla Khan. Another name of the poem is A Vision in a Dream. So Kubla Khan, this is the name of poem written by St. Coleridge, and another name, actually this is a vision, this is a dream. Actually, the indication of the poem found in a dream. So that is why the another name or another title of the poem is A Vision in a Dream, a fragment. So this is the fragment of a dream. Actually, this poem considered to be the one of the greatest poems by English romantic poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And here, in this poem, the speaker of the poem, especially the poet, envisions the landscape surrounding the Mongol rulers and Chinese emperor of Kublai Khan. You know, the Kublai Khan is a Mongol Chinese ruler of 13th century in China, and he deserts for a palace or dome and summer palace called Janadu. Basically, Janadu is the capital city of Kublai Khan in that time, 13th century. So very much ancient. This is the image of Kublai Khan you will find, and there in this poem you will find the description as a place of beauty, pleasure, and violence. So Kublai Khan's desire to have a palace, and there will be a beauty, pleasure, and violence. The speaker suggests that these qualities are all deeply intertwined, and he announces a desire to build a pleasure palace of the speaker's own through song. So this is the objective thing, but after getting the objective things, the writers come to the subjectives. So at the very beginning you will have the description of Kublai Khan desires to have a palace, and at the end of the poem you will have the desire of the speaker of the poem. He also wants to have to build a pleasure palace. Actually, this is the imaginary writing of the poet. And Kubla Khan is a poem of pure romance. Romance or romanticism. And all the romantic associations are concentrated in this short poem, which is a brilliant achievement in the field of supernatural poetry. So, such type of characteristic you will find that belongs to romanticism or romantic poetry. So now I will show you the context or background of the poem. Here you will find this is the image of Kubla Khan you have already introduced. And Kubla Khan basically is one of the greatest strange and hallucinatory poems. So it is a hallucination, hallucination. So it means that is something imaginary poem. So imaginary thought or imaginary presence, but not real presence. So that is this will be called hallucinatory poems. So by English romantic poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who said he wrote a poem shortly after waking up from the of him influence dream in 1797. So William Wordsworth is addicted with of him that is addict or addiction. So after waking up he wrote this poem, and he gets the clue of the poem in at the time of his sleeping in dream. Basically, Coleridge was one of the founders of Romantic movement, who himself described this poem Kubla Khan as a fragment of a dream. Fragment or part, or a part of his dream, not the complete one. This is the fragment, a division, a vision seen perhaps under the influence of him, which he saw when he had fallen asleep after reading the account of Kubla Khan in an old book of travel written by Perses. Basically, the clue of Kubla Khan, he has found reading another book, travel book by Perses. There he find the mention of Kubla Khan. After getting the clue, he wrote this poem. So this is the context or background of the poem. So here another information for Kubla Khan. Kubla Khan can be referred to as vision in a dream. The poem takes its name from the text title from the Mongol and Chinese emperor. I have already discussed here. The Janadu words here, and the famous poem actually, and it is the testimony of romanticism or romantic poetry. Now I will discuss the summary of the poem. You will find this is the image of the palace of the Kubla Khan, imaginary image actually. So the summary here you will find: The unnamed speaker of the poem, you will find the unnamed speaker of this poem tells that in a palace called Janadu, actually Janadu is a place, this is the capital city of the Mughal emperor of China in 13th century, Kublai Khan. So Kublai Khan is a Mughal emperor of China in 13th century, and Janadu is the capital city of Kublai Khan, and he ordered his servant to construct an impressive domed building, that is palace. Domed, you know, that is carved, that is design building, that will be palace for the pleasure and recreation on the bank of the holy river Alf, and that was a miracle of rare device because the dome was made of caves of ice and located in a sunny area. The speaker describes the constructing composition of Xanadu. So here in the very beginning, you will find the description of the palace, and this is the palace, and this palace for the only for the recreation and pleasure. The bank of holy river Alf. Alf, you know, Alif, the first letter of Arabic language. Alif. So from Alif, this is the Alf. So this is the name of river, the holy river. That is why it is holy, and that was the miracle of rare device. It is a miracle, it is outstanding things, and because the dome was made of caves of ice, so it will be made with ice, so it's a very much interesting and rare device and located in a sunny area. It's a very much sky high ambitions here of the Kublai Khan, and the speaker describes the constructing composition. So this is the contrasting composition of Janatu. So that is very much unique. That is very much unusual composition or description you will find in the poem at the very beginning. Now, another slide for the summary. While there are gardens blossoming with incense-bearing trees, sunny stops of the greenery across the deep romantic chasms in the Janadu, there was canvas measureless to man. So in the poem, you will find the description, you will find the a description of the dome or natural scenery, and actually the language of the poem is very much complicated. Here you will find the complicated, and also the description also complicated here. The sunny spot of greenery across the deep romantic chasm, you know, there will be Janadu, and the caverns measureless to man. So caverns actually is the a measureless place, or the a huge empty place that is really unmeasurable to man. So there is no chance to go there of man. So this is the caverns. So such type of things is wanted by Kublai Khan. That is very much unusual. And a fountain from the huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, and there will be rebounding hails, the huge fragments. So I mean, amid this hostile atmosphere of nature, Kubla also hears ancestral voice professing word. So this is the such type of beauty, but this is very much hostile beauty. This is very much violent beauty. So in such type of place here, the ambitious Kubla hears the ancestral voice of professing word. So Kubla, you know, he's a king, he's a emperor, and he always fond of oil, and also he hears the ancestral voice, you know, ancestral, the old generation of his dynasty, so they prophecies that word. And however, Kubla finds relief from this joyous atmosphere through this discovery of the miraculous sunny pleasure dome made of ice. So this is the such type of palace that is made of ice. So really, it is a very rare collection, and it is really imagination. So also you will find the touch of supernatural, because such type of description or such type of desire is not possible in nature, isn't it? Naturally. So that is why it is beyond natural. So that is why it is called supernatural and miraculous, you know, miraculous sunny dome. So this is very much ambitious, and so everything this is the testimony of romanticism or romantic imagination. So now we will find the last stanza for summary. Here, in the last stanza of the poem, the narrator longs to revive a song about Mount Abora that he once heard a woman play on a dulcimer. The speaker believes that the song would transport him to a dream world in which he could build that dome in air, and in which he can drink the milk of paradise. So in this slide, I have already shown you the two slides for summary. So that two slides only description of the Kublai Khan, the emperor of China, Mughal emperor. But in the last part of the poem, you will find actually the poem consists of 54 lines. So this is the last part, and in last part or last stanza of this poem, here the writer shifted his idea from Kublai Khan to himself, and here he says, narrator as a poet, uh, he himself longs for to have a song or to have a woman that heard a woman play on a dulcimer. It's a musical instrument. So here speaker believes that the song would transport him to a dream world in which he could build a dome in the air. So here, this is the daydreamer, so like activities of S.T. Goldis. So here he himself shifted his idea from Kublai Khan to himself, and he himself at the last he want to build a dome in the air that is very much supernatural, and that is beyond natural. So this is the imaginary image for the Kublai Khan poem, and there building a dome or palace in air, the writer want to have or drink the milk of paradise. So this is really very much fantastic idea or fantastic realization of the poem. So this is the evidence or characteristic or key point of romanticism. So now here you will find another slide, creativity of Kublai Khan. You will find the creativity. Kublai Khan commands from his luxurious dome, and river Alf here. The river Alf symbolize the letter Alf, the first letter of Arabic here, the river of knowledge. So river Alf symbolize the river of knowledge. So this is important for your deep question, I think. And capital of Kublai Khan is surrounded by fertile land and beautiful gardens and the streamlet. And around the capital are the hills covered with forest on which light is falling. So this is the creativity of Kublai Khan, who is the emperor of China, Mughal emperor. Now I will discuss the subject matter or theme of the poem. So here the main theme of the poem is romanticism or poetic imagination. So now we will see what is romanticism. So romanticism is a tendency found in all literature and in all centuries, but it is used profoundly in romantic poetry. So yeah, you have, as a student of English literature, I think you know romanticism, that is the synonymous of imagination or imaginary idea, that is poetic imagination, but that will be poetic. So this idea, so here you find the almost all the ages writers follow this idea, but for romantic poetry, but for romantic age, this is the core, this is the profoundly used the romanticism. And romanticism denotes a kind of literature that is centered upon the inner rather than upon the outer world, and tries to convey the feelings of the writers in a manner exclusively expressive of his experience and his personality. So this is the definition, or this is the meaning of romanticism. So in romanticism, you have to emphasize on the inner self or the imagination rather than outer world. You have to find out, you have to look at your inner self or in your heart or in your inner mentality. So that times you will be romantic, you will have the romanticism with you. So, and this is the exclusively expressive, it will be exclusively expressive of your experience and personality. So this is the the very definition, this is the very idea of romanticism. This is very important. So this is the first lines, 5 lines of the poem. Here you will find the image. In Janadu did Kubla Khan straightly pleasure dome decree. So this is the first 2 lines of the poem. The Janadu, the Kubla Khan straightly pleasure, the very beautifully pleasure dome decree, or decree here suggests order or desires, where Alf the sacred river ran. So this is the Alf the river, name of river, through caravans measureless to man. And the Alf follows, or sorry, actually the river follows through the caravans that is measureless to man. This is beyond measurable to man, or beyond race actually, and down to the sunless sea. And there is a sunless sea, the huge sea, that is really outstanding, or great dimension of the poem. So this is the first 5 line of the poem here. Dear student, you have already understood that the romanticism is the main idea or main things of this poem. So that is why we have to understand romanticism in details. And we are studying romantic poetry. The course name is romantic poetry, and so that is why romanticism is the core concept of all the writers of romantic poetry. So that is why we have a chance today here to understand romanticism in details. So here you will find the silent characteristic of romanticism, and I think you have already understood that this point, or this idea or idea of romanticism, is very much applicable or essential for all the poets of who belong to romantic period. So here this is the characteristic of romanticism. The first one, emphasis on emotion and imagination. So this is the first and foremost idea of characteristic of romanticism. So it will emphasize on emotion and imagination. Then you will have the number 2, deep and sincere love for nature. Of course there will be love for nature. So nature is a inevitable part for romanticism. So at first imagination, then love for nature, and love for man, a super abundant enthusiasm for humanity. So in romanticism and romantic poetry, there will also be another point, that is enthusiasm for humanity. That the writer will be very much human, and uh, they have the thirst, or they have the love for the humanity. And then love for the past, particularly for the Middle Age and for the ancient Greek life. So there will be a medieval idea, or medieval things also will be available for romanticism. In the middle is the age of history of English literature. The first name, or first period, Anglo-Saxon or old period. Then after Anglo-Saxon period, you will have the Middle Age that starts in 15th century. Sorry. And then you have the Restoration period, and then Neoclassical age, and after that you will find the Romantic poetry, and then Victorian, and then modern. So like this. So more middle age, the indication of middle age also found in Romantic period or in Romanticism. And another addition of strangeness of beauty. So there will be beauty. In my next class, I will discuss the beauty that is famous for John Keats, the poet of beauty. Poet of nature William Wordsworth, poet of supernaturalism S.T. Coleridge, and poet of beauty that will be called John Keats. That will come in next class. And then a subtle sense of mystery. There will be mystery or mysticism also available in romanticism. So now another slide for the later part of the characteristic of romanticism. Here you will find an enthusiastic intellectual curiosity. So here you will find the intellectual, and there will be curious or curiosity. Enthusiastic curiosity, instinctive curiosity you will find. And love for freedom and liberty. And supernaturalism, supernaturalism, that is st Goldis, the main elements we find the poem of Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And the next one, subjectivity, the poet express their own feelings and experiences in their work. So subjectivity, the personal thought or personal feeling of the poet. Here you find our personal dealing or activities you will find in this poem. So that will be subjectivity. And then a discard for rules and convention. So in romantic poetry, there will be the detested, or there will be difference from the rules and convention, or conventional things there will be absent. And the last one is a predominance of lyricism. So there will be lyric, there will be lyricism. Lyric is a rhythmic song or poem. So of course, this will be another characteristic of romanticism. So I think this is very important characteristic, and this characteristic will be very much important to understand the romantic poetry. So now we will find the romanticism in our today's discussion, the poem Kubla Khan. So Kubla Khan is a perfect example of romantic poem, using most of the silent characteristic of romanticism, and it is about poetry, and two sections discuss two type of poem, and the power of the imagination is an important component to this theme. So imagination is the actually the poem totally based on the imagination. So this is the powerful characteristic of romanticism, and the poem celebrates creativity and how the poet is able to experience a connection to the universe through inspiration. So everything we'll find this poem Kubla Khan, that I have already discussed in summary of the poem. Another theme of the poem is theme of man and natural world. Natural world and man also they are related to each other, and we find such type of theme also in the poem of st Goldis. Here in the poem you will find the connection, nature, that is the Xanadu and the dome or palace, and the man, Kubla Khan is a man. So here is a relationship between nature and man. So this type of things is always available in the poem of romantic poetry, especially William more so than st Goldis. So another theme of the poem is supernaturalism. The most of the romantic poets use supernaturalism elements in their poetry, but Samuel Taylor Coleridge is leading romantic poet in this regard, and Kubla Khan is full of supernatural element that I have already discussed. Another theme or subject matters of the poem, the pleasure and violence. So this is the very much paradoxical thing, subject matters, that will be pleasure, but that will be violence. So this is the opposite thing. So this is called paradox, paradoxical idea. This is also important literary term for English literature. So Kubla Khan begins by announcing that it is a poem about pleasure. It proposes to describe the Mughal leaders' summer palace along with all its luxuries, and for the speaker, mysterious pleasures. However, the poem soon takes a curious turn. Instead of describing luxurious description or brilliant jewels, it focuses mainly on the river that runs through the ground of the palace. So at first you will find the luxurious description or pleasurable description of the palace, but soon you will find the description of the river, and that is very much violent, that is very much dangerous, that follows or runs through the palace. Here in the next part you will find what is more, instead of describing the river in pleasant term, it often focuses on the river's violent energy. So here you will find the river, but that is violent. So through this description, Kubla Khan suggests that pleasure and beauty are neither simple nor uncomplicated or not easy. Rather, the poem shows pleasure and beauty come from the conflict between opposing forces, and that they always contain some degree of violence and ugliness. So pleasure and violence. So if you want to have pleasure, so that times you have to face violence. So this is the paradoxical idea of the poem. Now I will show another subject matter or theme of the poem here, that is creativity and reason. So here we will find, though the speaker describes the grounds of Kubla Khan's palace in details, the speaker also hints that this physical feature, this uh, sorry, these physical features are not entirely literal. Indeed, the poem's dreamlike, hallucinatory tone seems to invite the reader to treat the speaker's description an allegory for creativity and the human mind. Dear student, you have already known that this is the poem of imagination, this is a poem of hallucination. So, but if you want to do anything, something creative, so that times you have to imagine, and with your imagination, you will have the creativity. So, creativity and reason that will always come from the imagination. That is found in this poem. Another important theme, that is limits of creativity. Kubla Khan can be read as an extended metaphor and allegory. So, power of human creativity, with the river that runs through the grounds of the palace, serving as a map of the human psyche and its creative power. The speaker remains doubtful about his own capability to realize that creative potential, though the speaker wants to build a pleasure dome of his own, and he only fantasizes about doing so. Though Kubla Khan celebrates the power of human creativity, it also recognizes that such creativity is limited, fragile, and quickly lost. So here, by this slide, we will find that there is a limitation of creativity. So man has the limitation. That is why the poem is not complete. This is the fragment of the poem. So here, by these things here, the speaker or the writers remain doubtful about his own capability, that to realize that the creative potentiality. And though the speaker wants to build a pleasure dome for his own, but he is very much doubtful that whether will it be possible or not. So such type of things proves that there is a limitation of creativity. So this is another important theme of the poem. Now, I will discuss the form or style of the poem. I have already mentioned that the poem is 54 line. This is a very much chant-like musical invocation. Kubla Khan. This is very much charming, and a result from Coleridge's masterful use of iambic tetrameter. So here you will find the very excellent meter, that is tetrameter, 4 feet meters, and the iambic and unstressed and stressed syllable, and altering rhythm. Schemes, rhyme scheme, alternating rhyme scheme here. The first stanza is written in tetrameter with the rhyme scheme. This is the rhyme scheme, and then you will find this rhyme scheme, and the after you will. So such type of, this is the style or form of the poem. So you will find in this poem. So here, another, this is the context. So the poem, basically Coleridge's inspiration for this poem was the drug addiction. Actually, the ST Coleridge is drug addicted, and that is why caused by of him. And perhaps this poem is based on 5 human senses, and the legend is that he dreamed over 300 lines, but he was interrupted by a man from Burlock, so the poem remains incomplete. So that is why the poem is called a vision dream, but that is fragmented. So this is the context of the poem. So here the theme of nature also is introduced at the beginning of the poem, is continued throughout, and with reference to the river, water, dark, musical, unrealistic surroundings. So I have already discussed here, and you will have to consider metaphor for the man tries to control nature, and man-made paradise is annihilated or destroyed or replaced with the true form of nature in the form of a pleasure dome with a cave of ice. So this is the another slide, and this is also the testimony of importance, or Janadu. So with Janadu, and the last line of the poem is drink the milk of paradise. So this is the reference of farewell to king, who writers used the reference from the Kubla Khan. So that is why it proves that it is very famous. So now I will show you the memorable quotation of the poem. So this is the first line, first five lines of the poem. In Janadu did Kubla Khan, I have already discussed, stately pleasure dome degree, and where Alps the sacred river ran through grave and measureless to man, down to the sunless sea. Dear student, I have already discussed it in my previous slides. So now I will show you the a new question analysis, the brief question you will find. So what type of poem is Kubla Khan? You have already known that these are romantic poem, an original poem because of spontaneous and exact representation of the poet imagination. So this proves this is the poem of romantic poetry. Why this poem, the poem Kubla Khan called a dream poem? So I have already discussed that Coldis claim the whole poem Kubla Khan comes to him in his dream. So under the spell of him. So being awoken, he just wrote down the reflection of his dream. So the poem is called the dream poem. So that is why this is the name dream called dream poem. So another question here, who is Kublai Khan? I have already discussed the Mughal emperor of China during 13th century. And what is Janadu? So such type of question you will have. Janadu is the name of capital city of Kublai Khan. This is the image of Kublai Khan you will find. And why did Coleridge consider the river Alf as a sacred river? Here you will find the idea. Coleridge considered Alf as a sacred river as it was fertilizing the land of its bank as well as the land area of Kubla Khan's paradise dome. So this is the image you will find. This is the river, imaginary. I think this is the imaginary picture or images. So another question you will find: what does the flow uh, of the sacred river Alp symbolize? So the flow of the sacred river Alp symbolize the spontaneity of life and its liveliness. This is very important. This is the imaginary picture, Kubla Khan Palace, the very fantastic and very much imaginary, I think. And what is the symbolic connection between river Alp and the sunless sea? In the poem, Kubla Khan Colditch symbolically shows that the river Alp as a symbol of life follows forward and finally falls down in the sunless sea, which is the symbol of death. So this is the very fantastic relation between the Alf and the sunless sea. So Alf is the symbol of life, and the sunless sea is the symbol of death. So this is a very fantastic simile or similarity or metaphor. You know that is the famous literary term or mostly frequently used literary term. Another images, this is the sculpt of Kubla Khan. So here you will find another things. So you also mentioned the woman's hairs. Why was the woman wailing? The woman was wailing for her demon lover who left her after a deep love with her. So here you will find the damsel mean the word from taken from text. The damsel means the young maiden. So such type of question, I think that will be very much important. And now I will show you the short question here. I have already discussed, romanticism, supernaturalism, and Kubla Khan. Here you will find. So such type of question is important for you. Now I will show you the broad question here. The romanticism, elements of romanticism, Kubla Khan with reference. This is very important. And Coleridge handles supernatural element poem Kubla Khan. This is the suggestive question. So I have already discussed. If you follow my previous slides, you will have the answer, all of you. So I think you will attentively follow my lecture, and that's all for today. Hopefully so you will following my lecture attentively, and in the next class I will discuss on PV Shelley, Percipi Shelley, and hopefully you will be available with me and staying at home and maintaining the health rules. You will continue your study attentively, and all the best for you, and thank you all for being with me. আল্লাহ হাফেজ।